Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Rights at Night session about strategic waiver school systems and charter school systems. Tonight, our presenter is Joe Fleming with GAE Government Relations, our lobbyist. And Joe is going to let us know about how we came to be where we are today and what we are looking at going forward. So, Joe, thank you for being our presenter tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. I know a lot of you have spoken with us about your concerns about, school system waivers that are granted by the Georgia Department of Education and local districts. In fact, of the 180 school districts in Georgia, 178 actually have waivers. And it's an issue that has captured Lisa's attention and ours. And it's something we want to try to address this year. So we've done a little bit of research and put together some thoughts for you to consider. We realize we've got a real educational process that we need to undertake with our legislators and maybe our members as well to explain how this has evolved over the last 12 years, where we are, concerns that we have with the current waiver system process. So hopefully you can see the screen that I'm sharing. And our first slide basically is how school system waivers are hurting our students in schools. So just for those that aren't familiar, and I'm certain most of you are, what are school system waivers? These are exemptions that the Department of Education grants to local school districts to exempt them from state laws, department rules and regulations, and the high standards that we find in the law. Examples of those include, for example, class size. The state law has requirements on the maximum number of students that can be in classrooms, and it's divided by kindergarten through 3, I think, or is it 1 through 3? Basically the middle schools and then the high schools. So under the current situation with class sizes, as an easy example to understand, if a system has a waiver that exempts them from the maximum number of students that can be in a classroom, there is no limit anymore on the number of students that can be packed into that classroom. Lisa and I were on a call the other day with officials from the Department of Education, and a system that has a class size waiver, the only thing that can limit that class size is the fire marshal coming in and saying there are too many students in this classroom. Obviously, in our opinion, large classrooms are a detriment to higher learning. They're problematic for teachers, and there can be no correlation between that flexibility, as they call it, that's being given to school districts in exchange for demonstrating academic achievement and improvements. There are other waiver examples. And by the way, for class sizes, of the 180 districts, I think about 132 have specific waivers relieving them of the responsibility to comply with state law on class sizes. There are also waivers that systems have that essentially waive the minimum salary that teachers are required to be given. It is possible that in a future scenario, if the governor and the legislature agreed on a teacher pay raise, that money could go to school districts and be spent on landscape or any number of things. But with that waiver, there is no requirement that the money sent to the districts for teacher salaries actually goes to teacher salaries. Now, our understanding in the 2 years ago when Governor Kemp passed the pay raise, virtually every school district did that. And I think they'd be under enormous political pressure if they failed to take money that was allocated for teacher salaries and spend it somewhere else. You guys are probably aware that there are districts that have waivers that don't require the hiring of certified teachers. Fair dismissal is another one where basically the district can waive the fair dismissal rights that a teacher has beginning in the 4th year of their teaching contract. And I know I've heard from a lot of teachers about duty-free lunch as an important part of planning day, a brief respite from the craziness of the school day. So there's some of the examples, but there are others. And we'll look at those just real quickly. There are actually waivers, and this is one of the things I didn't know. There are waivers that relieve districts of the responsibility for programs for gifted students, for students at risk of academic failure, for students who come from families where English is a second language, for EIP and remedial students. Trying to get more information on how that's actually working at the local level, but it appears it may be a way for districts to put more students in a class and not hire extra teachers. But they have waivers that eliminate some of the standards that we expect our schools to have in dealing with these kind of student populations. And then the catch-all phrase is that under the state law, the school board can approve any waiver requested by the local school system, whether it's in this list or not. And there's several that have those kind of waivers. So it's a pretty open-ended process where the waiver gives the district basically carte blanche to ignore state law and, again, the high standards that are set in state law and department rules. So a little bit of history on waivers. This apparently began about 2008. That was in the middle of what some people call the Great Recession. Governor Perdue was the governor at the time, and he proposed what was intended to be a temporary financial relief for districts and allowed them to adopt some of these waivers, for example, for class size. But again, this was supposed to be temporary and only to give financial flexibility to districts during a difficult time. In 2015, waivers were renamed strategic waiver school systems, and districts had the opportunity to choose between what I believe at the time was called status quo, between becoming a state charter school system to demonstrate that there's some correlation between scholastic achievement. I'm skeptical that anyone can make the case that larger class sizes translate to better and increased student learning. But as, yes?
Go back to that. We were muted for a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Go back to the beginning of that, I'm sorry.
Of this slide? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, I think we were cut off for a moment there. Briefly just discussing how we got to this situation, what a little bit of the history is on waivers. In 2008, Governor Sonny Perdue proposed a legislative package to grant school districts some financial relief during the Great Recession. These would be waivers, for example, where a system might be able to increase class size to help them adjust for some of the financial difficulties that the nation and the state were experiencing during the Great Recession. But these waivers were intended to be temporary. They were supposed to end in June of 2010. But in 2015, waivers were renamed strategic waiver school systems. And districts were asked to make a choice between becoming strategic waiver school systems, state charter school systems, or what I believe at the time was called status quo, where they operated without waivers. And as I said before, there are 178 of 180 school districts that basically have the opportunity and have waivers in place in one way or the other. But I think there's an important distinction between the 2008 waivers and 2015. Remember, in 2008, the waivers were given for financial flexibility. Beginning in 2015, waivers were given in exchange from the districts for demonstrable academic improvement by students. And certainly, I think in an area like class size, I'd love to hear the argument that says bigger class sizes translate into academic performance and scholastic achievement. I don't think they can, but again, in exchange for a waiver, now they have to demonstrate academic improvement. So here's a map from the Georgia Department of Education. All of the white counties and yellow counties have waivers. So you see there's two counties, I think Webster's one, and I think Beaufort City Schools is the other, They're the only two that have chosen not to seek waivers from the Department of Education. So virtually everywhere in the state of Georgia, sorry about that, is covered under waivers. One of the problems, I think, is there's very little accountability that we found, again, in demonstrating that the waivers given, whether it be for class size, minimum teacher salaries, certified teachers, fair dismissal, whether there's any correlation at all between scholastic achievement. But in demonstrating, the districts demonstrating to the Department of Education that they're making progress academically, they only have to demonstrate improvement in one of these four areas. It could be an improvement in high school graduation rates, SAT scores, improvements in one state standardized test, and increases in AB or IB participation. In my opinion, anyway, that's a pretty weak standard to uphold to grant the kind of waivers that we're granting, that you only have to show improvement in one of those four areas. And I mentioned, sorry, where did I go? I mentioned that there's little transparency. Most of the data that's on the Governor's Office of Student Achievement and the Department of Education is dated. Some of it is only as current as 2007. We are coming up in a period of time in the next 2 years where the original strategic waiver school systems have to have proven that they've met their end of the bargain, and again, that's academic improvement. But right now, there's little data to show correlation between these waivers and academic improvement, and frankly, very little transparency in the whole process right now. So again, just to repeat, in our opinion, the cumulative effect of these waivers over the last 12 years is harmful to the quality of public education in Georgia. Many of these waivers directly hurt students, their families, and many hurt teachers as well, and ESPs. Under the bill, which passed in 2015, which is HB 502, systems are supposed to implement highly rigorous curriculum to encompass content standards in public schools statewide, which of course waivers basically exempts them from having to live up to department rules and state law. So it's a broad area here with a number of different issues at effect. I think one of our political challenges is that I don't think the legislature even realizes they delegated legislative responsibility to the Department of Education. Even those legislators that Lisa and I have talked to who are extremely knowledgeable about education issues are not aware that we're exempting EIP programs and remedial learning programs, or to the extent that class size and other waivers are being utilized. So we wanted tonight to kind of begin with an introduction to what the waivers are, where we are in Georgia, and then begin the process to educate our members who are not on this call and legislators so that we can affect change to this system. Lisa.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. So the first question I hope our members are asking is, how can we change this? And how can I find out more information? So I am going to put in the chat for all of you the link to the State Department of Education website where you can go and click on your school system, if your school system is in fact a strategic waiver school system, and see what waivers your system has chosen. And I'm going to also show you all the graph that is that, well, the spreadsheet that is there that lists everybody's waivers. We're just going to hold it up for you. This is the graph that shows all the waivers. And as you can see, it was 25 pages then taped together. We're going to work to get this better for our members so you can know what your system has waived.
By the way, the font on that is so tiny, I can't read it.
Yes.
If it were a normal 10 or 11 point font, it probably would be 4 times as big as that.
It would take up our wall. But here are some of the waivers that Joe didn't mention that are especially concerning to educators. Fair dismissal. And the data the state has says there were 16 districts who have waived fair dismissal. However, we know from watching the State Board of Education meetings, in the midst of the pandemic, at least 14 systems have changed their waivers. So even while we're trying to deal with everything we're dealing with, they are changing these waivers. Another one that just when I saw it yesterday and started looking through these for everything everybody's waiving, 126 of the waiver school systems, and of course, all the systems that are charter have waivers from everything, have waived the requirements for health and physical education. $128 have waived the programs for limited English proficient. So our English language learners. All 132 have waived part of the early intervention program. All 132 have waived the class size. 49 have waived guidance counselors, and all 132 have waived the 65% rule, which is that 65% of the budget should be for a classroom. So I've been getting questions from members. We're being furloughed this year, but they're hiring new people in the county office. That's because they waived the direct classroom expenditure. What can we do to fix this?
That's to me.
Yes,
well,
that's my question.
We've got to start. I don't believe that there's been any concerted effort to wake the legislature up. I find it interesting that it was the Republican Party that passed this. Normally, one of their mantras is they don't want things being legislated by bureaucrats. They want that power for themselves. So it's kind of incredible to me that the majority party gave away these broad powers to the Department of Education. Excuse me. And again, my experience in talking with legislators about this issue is that most are not aware that this is going on. Even on class sizes, I don't think they're aware that there is absolutely no limit to how large a class can be if you have a class size waiver, or the minimum teacher salaries or certified teachers. And all of these cut to the question of quality of education and what's best for our student. And that's what the law says they're supposed to show in exchange. So we've got an important job to begin to educate our legislators, probably starting with, I guess, with the education committees in particular. I'd like to have a bill introduced this year that at least draws some attention to this issue and triggers a debate over whether this waiver system in Georgia, which I understand from Peggy Cochran, our executive director, is almost unique in the country. I'm not aware, and I don't think she is, or Lisa, of any other state that basically waives these state standards and laws. So we've got a big job at the Capitol, and we'll be calling on you and the rest of the membership to begin to teach our legislators about what's happening. That the legislature gave away to their power to the Department of Education, and the department is granting waivers as they're allowed to for everything from class size to EIP and English second language programs. and that those things have a detrimental impact on academic progress. I just don't see how you can say many of these waivers can in any fashion be tied to academic performance, and every waiver is supposed to be held to that standard that is contributing to the progress of our students. So we've got some education work to do at the General Assembly. We've got education work to do with our own membership as well.
Okay, we have a question from one of our attendees in the chat. And if someone else has a question, please put it in there. We want to answer your questions tonight so we can begin to think what we're going to do moving forward. And our question is, we are having class size problems in Cobb. The district is having normal in-person classes, that's class size, and then adding 10 to 15 more virtual students to teach at the same time. Is this legal even with the waivers? So can they add?
Let's see, I'm sorry, I was looking up a link. While we're having class size problems in Cobb, the district is having normal in-person class size and adding virtual. I say yes. We've asked that question to the Department of Education specifically. The fact that many districts or some districts are doing hybrid or online learning does not impact the waiver that a district may have for that. So you're correct. You could have responsibility for classes combined in person and online of, again, whatever, 40, 45 kids.
And for those of you, we did ask about the class size, and the response we got from the Department of Education was that there is really no limit on how many students they could put in our class unless the fire marshal came in and said there were too many students in the classroom.
Right.
So that's not what we want to hear. That's not what we think needs to happen. But the only way we can change these issues is legislatively, because the districts, and if you are in a charter district, your district has a blanket waiver. They have waived everything. So those of you that are in charter districts, it's even worse than the class size, the strategic waivers. One thing that was interesting to me as we were looking at this, and I saw it in almost every one of the districts, it is a 5-year contract for 6 years of flexibility. So that math didn't make a lot of sense to me. The charter systems are for 5 years. So most of them had to make this decision by 2015 to be implemented July 1st, 2016, which means their 5-year period would end July 1st, 2021, but they say their waiver goes through July 1st, 2022. So this year is the year, if they're following what they're supposed to be doing, they're supposed to show the increase in academic performance. And who are they showing that to?
Well, as you and I have discovered, there's a couple things that don't appear to be happening that are required by the law. The LEAs are supposed to, no, the Department of Education is supposed to report to the LEAs on progress, and that's supposed to be posted on each district's website. That's correct, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that Connie's question made me think of is, I don't know of any teacher that's told us their workload is less during COVID.
No.
And that makes me think of the duty-free lunch and how important that time is, whether you just use it for mental health or nutrition or for class planning. It's just again, another waiver that just makes zero sense if it's supposed to result in improved academic performance. It's almost malicious to teachers.
those of us in elementary school, the duty-free lunch was our one guaranteed restroom break during the day.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's happening. Another one of these that is concerning to me, 99 of the districts have waived the compulsory attendance law. So requiring our students to attend is going to help us how?
It makes, again, I mean, this is the whole thing about the waivers thing. It's just baffling to me. As someone new to GAE and education, I'm just, as a parent, I'm amazed. And I think when we get our message out through our GAE grassroots network and our members, legislators will easily see that that we're exempting these standards and laws, and they're not improving our schools. They're making life more difficult for teachers, creating a less favorable environment for our students. And I think if we're successful at doing our job and explaining this in English, we're still working on that, then I think a number of legislators say, you're right, this makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions. I'm going to deal with the waiver one first. If the district can waive fair dismissal or due process, what impact does that have on job security for certified and classified employees?
Correct me if I'm wrong, it means there is no job security.
That's right.
I mean, if you waive fair dismissal, they don't have to give you notice, a reason, a due process opportunity. It's bye. And so, you know, as professional educators, you ought to be concerned about that. You may have 20 years in the system, but if your system has a waiver from fair dismissal, you know, that afternoon you could be out looking for a job.
This question is not to the waivers, but will you please clarify the details to the GAE lawsuit and how does that impact us now during COVID? And I'm wondering which lawsuit she's talking about, so I'm going to tell you about a couple of them.
Yeah, I think it may be the one.
The fan and.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So we heard last Wednesday from the Georgia Court of Appeals, one of the districts that is a charter district. So they have a waiver blanket for everything. We have a member there who had been teaching for many, many years, and because they have a charter, they did not provide her due process rights because they had waived fair dismissal. So GAE has filed a lawsuit and said that due process is a constitutional right and they cannot waive our constitutional rights. The Court of Appeals did not say yes or no, but they did say that the trial court had to make a decision in that case. So that was sent back to the trial court to make a determination of whether due process rights are a constitutional right. The other.
So just to clarify,
yes.
You may have 20 years in service in a district that did not have a waiver for fair dismissal. They adopt or they ask the DOE for a waiver for fair dismissal. You instantly lose that, is what the defendants are saying in this case. Right. Is it
it's gone.
It's a new contract for the district and all your prior fair dismissal rights are gone.
Yes, yes. The other lawsuit that we have, in case that was your question, is against the state, and it is a statewide lawsuit for not having clear and consistent guidelines for reopening the buildings during COVID. And I am putting in the chat our survey that goes along with that one that we are asking all of our members to complete. The next question we have, is we are seeing parapros being used as classroom teachers instead of subs. Do waivers cover this? Unfortunately,
Probably yes. I'm not.
yes, because I'm looking down at our little chart we have here. 130 of the 132 waiver districts have waived certification requirements for educators. So they are allowed to hire someone as a teacher who is not a certified teacher. So they can place the paraprofessional in the classroom without them being certified because they have a waiver for the certification requirements. The other thing they can do with this waiver for the certification requirements is they can require you to teach out of your area of certification. So if they can't find enough science teachers, they can tell the social studies teacher, you're going to teach a science class this semester. And that is the certification requirements. And that's also the salary schedule. Most of the districts have waived the salary schedule. And my question about waiving the salary schedule is a minimum salary schedule. And some of the districts have said they are waiving it because they want to pay some teachers more.
Which they can do already.
They can do that already. So why do they need to waive the minimum to pay more? So I hope we answered the lawsuit question and we've answered the para question. Any other questions you have? If you are hearing us this evening, this is going to be something we are going to be looking at with our members and with our legislators and educating our legislators about what's happening. Joe and I have already been talking to them about this, the legislators we've met with, but they need to hear from you, the member, and how this is impacting you. They need to hear from the teacher that has a full class of 30 students already, and they have 10 or 15 more in the classroom. That story is what they're going to remember rather than Joe or I telling them we shouldn't be doing this.
Well, you're exactly right, Lisa, because our members on the ground are the most important asset we have. And, you know, if you're sitting in a church pew next to a state senator or a representative, or see them at the grocery store, or in the course of doing business or during your day, or they come by the school, start talking to them about this issue. I'll be honest, I'm still researching parts of it that I'm not clear on how local districts are implementing these waivers. There's like compulsory education. I don't know what you do with that. Or they actually, I'm unclear. So if Lisa posted a link earlier to the DOE website on strategic waivers, school systems. It's got a link to, I think, all the counties that have waivers. I hope you will take the time to look at your district and see what waivers your district has. And then if you have questions about how they're being implemented, ask your administration. I mean, the waivers to school bus drivers, I have no idea what that means except maybe salary. But that's not really a state funded issue, so I'm not really clear on that. There's a waiver for substitute teacher requirements. Of course, school calendar is waived. There's one waiving. 36 school systems have waivers for school councils. I'm not sure. Are they abolishing student council? I don't know what that means.
The school councils were put into place so that our parents and community members could have input into our school system. Each school is supposed to have a school council that has parent members, that has staff members, and members of the business community that all serve on this school council to help make decisions for the school. why would we not want input from the community
Right.
into our schools?
Well, thanks for correcting my ignorance, because
Yeah,
I wasn't sure about that one.
Yes, and one of the roles of the school councils, at least in every school I've ever worked in, the school council had input when the school needed a principal, and they were able to meet with candidates and provide input to the superintendent. Is this person going to fit in our school community? We have a question from one of our members. What happened to the requirement for teachers to be highly qualified? Well, strategic waiver school systems, they can waive any school law, any Title 20 law, any state board of education rule, except they cannot waive that they will not violate the civil rights of our students or staff. And someone has a question, I might have missed this, but who voted on the waivers? Was it via the school board? And yes, you are exactly right. Your local school board had to make a decision by 2015 whether they were going to become a charter school system, a strategic waiver school system, or if they were going to be, the word then was status quo. All of our school boards had to vote on this information, and they were supposed to hold public hearings before they did so. And they are supposed to have this information available on the website.
Prominently, I believe.
Prominently is the word. I've looked at a couple of systems websites and I can't find the information prominently. So the boards voted on this, and ostensibly you would think that the boards are going to have to vote for a new contract or to become a charter or to extend their charter for 5 years. And that's part of the thing that we haven't found in the law yet. How is this going to be renewed? And are they going to have to ask the public again? And if they do have to ask the public again, that's when we need to get our parents and our community members involved. One of our members said that they know their district held public hearings. So these happened in 2016, and a lot of them, I know from my experience in my school district has a waiver for duty-free lunch, but they weren't implementing the waiver. School systems are now implementing those waivers. Part of them due to COVID and part of them due to other reasons. They don't have the employees they need, part of that due to COVID. So yes, the question is, the school boards had to vote, and the school boards are also able to request an amendment to that waiver contract. And that's something we need everybody find it when it's at the school board level before it gets to the state school board level. I'm going to be checking the State Board of Education every month to see who's adding waivers. But by the time it gets to the state school board, they are a rubber stamp.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a waiver request that's been denied. There may be, but it seems to be pretty much rubber stamped, as you said. You asked for it, you got it.
And so you all need to be looking at your local school board. Somebody said, my system held public hearings, but very few people attended the hearings. I'm not sure that average citizens and maybe even educators know what this is.
I think you're right.
We all agree with that. That's why we're doing this Rights at Night tonight. And that's why you're going to be hearing about it a lot more from us, to educate our colleagues and to educate the state legislature so they know what is happening. They passed this law in 2008. Unless we tell them, they won't know what's actually happening in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm not aware also, which think is interesting, of any, often when the legislature delegates authority, they expect reports back from the agency or department that they've done so, because they want accountability about how that's going. I didn't see anything in law, and I'm not aware that there have been any reports from either GOSA, Governor's Office of Student Achievement, or the Department of Education back to the legislature. And, you know, that would be a step in the right direction, is to have more transparency and more accountability between the Department of Education and the legislature about what's going on. So we may also be working with some of our allies to try to get some accountability there between the department and the legislature.
One of our members didn't have a question. She had a comment, and she said that's probably by design too. And it may be that these hearings were held at times that parents and community members could not attend. I know we have some school boards that their major meetings are during the day when educators are in their classrooms. Our parents are at work and
they're probably not highly promoted because it is kind of seen as esoteric. Until you dig into it, you realize I can't believe all this is going on. And so it may be by design, not to put any sunshine on it.
Okay. So if you have further questions, we'll be happy to answer them. I kind of want to talk a little bit about my vision for this going forward. And a lot of what you've heard tonight, you're thinking, this sounds pretty bleak. This is rights at night, but we've been talking about the rights we don't have. And the only way we are going to be able to use this and change this is if we work to hold our school boards accountable and the legislators, and that we truly educate them about what's going on. So later this week, if you are here tonight, and I didn't already have you on my list, you will be going on my list. We are going to be doing, we're going to create a statewide team from every single state representative's district, so that we have somebody that can be their GAE member that is going to be their go-to person to talk to them about education. So you all will be hearing about that from us, and we're going to be doing some trainings and some meetings so everybody can feel very comfortable lobbying, so that, yes, Joe and I will be at the Capitol as long as the Capitol is open, and we will be there talking to the legislators. But it needs to be more than just the two of us. We need educators who are in the classroom every day, driving the school bus every day. They are talking to them. We've got some more comments. We have one person that said, my superintendent assured me that the waivers put in place because of COVID would no longer be used when all this is over. And we
started way before COVID.
Yeah, the issue is that many of these waivers have been in place for years. And so for many districts, they have been using these waivers long before COVID. We have somebody say that might be true. Okay, and she's saying that superintendents may change their mind if they think the waivers, particularly if it saves them money. I can see them saying, oh, well, we saved this money and it didn't really hurt anybody. So that's what we're going to have to do, is make sure that we do hold them to those commitments they make to us, but also that we let everyone know what's happening with these waivers. 31 students in a kindergarten class is not best for students or the teacher. 29 students in a high school chemistry class doing a lab. Science teachers, you really want to try that? I'm scared of what might happen. So health and physical education being waived, certification being waived, the funding coming to the classroom instead of going to other places, early intervention and English language learners. It really is a problem that we are not doing what we need to do for these students. And my response to this is these state laws and these board rules were put in place to provide, it's like the state salary scale. This is the minimum acceptable level of what we should be providing our students. So every child should get this minimum. If the district can go above and beyond, that's great, but we certainly should not be lowering the minimum of what we say is acceptable. So if anyone else has any questions, any comments?
Sure. Plug next week.
Oh yes, I need to plug next week in 2 different cases.
Okay.
I'm not as used to doing my commercials in Facebook and Rights at Night as I am in Facebook Live. One of the really important reasons we are not going to be able to change this without having Friends of Public Education in the Georgia legislature. So we need everyone to join us October 31st from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at our Get Out the Vote rally. And I will put the link where you can register for that in the chat in just a moment. We will be texting all of our members who have not yet voted to remind them to go to the polls on November 3rd and vote for Friends of Public Education. We also will have Facebook Live next Wednesday night at 6:30, and we're hoping we will have some candidates with joining us once again. So we have another comment that if districts want to hold on to quality teachers, treating them badly is not the way to go. And that is one of the issues that we're going to have to bring up and that we're going to have to make sure our legislators understand. There is a teacher shortage in Georgia. There is definitely a substitute teacher shortage in Georgia.
School bus and cafeteria workers and
everyone. So continuing these waivers is not the way to go to get every child having a caring, committed, qualified educator in front of them in the classroom, in the cafeteria, on the school bus. So the waiver system, we've tried this for 5 years. It was just somebody's great idea, I believe. I haven't been able to find any data that said this is a good thing to do. Somebody had the great idea. This will be good for education. I don't see that it has helped in my classroom. And I don't see members saying it's helped in theirs.
Again, I think it's making life miserable for teachers and it's not helping students.
And we have a question. I have 26 students on roll now, and I'm curious what content area or grade you teach. 12 are virtual. I'm concerned what's going to happen when they return. That's a lot of people in a small space during a pandemic. You're absolutely correct. That's a lot of people in a small space during a pandemic. But that's, okay, she teaches 7th grade social studies. That's also a lot of students in a classroom for regular, normal times to have 26 students in the classroom. I'm going to put the rally link in there. We do want you all to sign up to be at our Get Out the Vote rally. We will have special guests that day. Stacey Abrams will be there and our NEA president, Becky Pringle. We will have some other special guests And we will be recognizing some of our members that day.
Let me mention 2 other dates. November 14th, we will be doing what we call a lobby and learn, or sometimes lobbying 101. This will be the first of 2 sessions. Certainly the November session will be online only. We'll have to wait and see how January goes. But it'll be an opportunity to get members together to teach how to effectively lobby at the Georgia General Assembly. So that's going to be the morning of November 14th. And then on February 25th is the GAE day at the Capitol. And with the way this session is shaping up, we need a really big turnout for that. I'm sure vouchers will be going on. We may be making some progress on the waiver issue. Remember, we took $1 billion cut in public education in the current year budget. So we want to begin to mobilize to begin to recoup some of that money if the revenue situation permits. And if it does permit, make sure it is directed to education, not other areas, so that we don't go through another 10-year austerity calamity. So November 14th, Lobby and Learn, day at the Capitol, February 25th.
And we will have registration links up for those soon. And it will be in your e-news. And we will also ask you to check on the website. We will put them there. Our next Rights at Night will be November 17th. And we will have guests that night to explain all about teacher retirement. And this is going to be twofold. If you're getting close to retirement, you're going to want the information. But if you're like me and you got a long time to go before you can retire, we know that bills have come up at the legislature the past several years to change our teacher retirement system.
And we'll have a new chairman this year, so who knows what may happen.
So the best way we can protect ourselves and be ready to protect our teacher retirement system is to know it inside and out, know what they're going to say before they say it, and have the facts to answer the questions. And
one other thing on the Lobby and Learn, I know we're running out of time. One of the parts of that program is going to be an evaluation or summary of the election. And who knows what's going to happen in the election, but it'll be fascinating to see if there are any trends, if the Democrats take control of one of the chambers in Georgia. So if you're interested in politics, I think that'll be an interesting aspect in addition to, learning the ropes of working the Capitol.
Great. So if we don't have any more questions, I will thank all of you all for joining us this evening for Rights at Night about charter schools and strategic waivers. Wasn't upbeat and happy, but the upbeat and happy will come when we are able to change some of these. And as always, I want to thank you all for all you do for our students, for our members, and for GAE. And everyone have a wonderful evening.